I'm standing in the ruins of what used to be my late wife's dream mansion, the home I built for her after she lost her battle with cancer 6 years ago. Just yesterday, in a brutal 6-hour span, bulldozers reduced a $4.2 million home to dust while I was in Washington, D.C. on official state business. The air still smells of diesel fuel and crushed drywall. Twisted rebar sticks out of the ground like shattered bones. Off to the side, the infinity pool she sketched during her final days lies cracked open, water spilling helplessly into the ravine below. At exactly 6:47 a.m., the email arrived. Demolition authorized due to $38,000 in unpaid Chacha Mustafa fines. Unpaid. That was Vivian Pritchard's lie. Every single dollar had been paid, twice. Receipts, canceled checks, written approvals from her own committee, all carefully saved. What Vivian never expected was this. 3 weeks ago, I was sworn in as the governor of this state. If Chacha Mustafa has ever destroyed your dream based on lies, comment below. Tell me what you would do, and let me know where you're watching from, because this is how you bring down a tyrant who made the most expensive mistake of her life. Let me take you back 6 years. My wife, Elaine, was an architect, the kind who sketched buildings on napkins during dinner, who could look at an empty hillside and immediately envision a home that belonged there. When ovarian cancer came, she fought it for 18 months. In her final weeks, lying in a hospital bed with morphine dulling the pain, she designed a house for me. Not just any house, our dream home. It was meant to sit on a mountain at 7,200 feet, with floor-to-ceiling windows facing the Continental Divide. She wanted salvaged timber from old barns, wood that smelled like a century of summers and winters, every beam carrying the history of families who once lived beneath it. She drew an infinity pool that stretched toward the valley, like it was falling straight into the sky. "Build it," she told me 3 days before she died. "Promise me you'll build it." I was 51 years old, an appellate court judge, no children, and suddenly no wife. So I built it. I spent 2 years tracking down every piece of reclaimed timber she specified. Cedar from a Montana barn that still carried the faint scent of mountain air, river rock for the fireplace. I can still hear the dry click-clack of those stones settling into place, like nature applauding. The custom steel and glass atrium she called the mountain's breath was designed to catch the wind and make it sing. When it was finished, I moved in. Ridgemont Estates, an upscale gated community 90 minutes from the state capital, 340 homes, quiet, private, peaceful. That peace lasted 8 months. Then I met Vivian Pritchard. She was 61, with blonde hair shellacked into a helmet sturdy enough to survive a Category 5 hurricane. She wore turquoise jewelry like she was single-handedly keeping a Southwestern gift shop in business. She drove a white Cadillac Escalade with vanity plates that read, "Ho Press," because subtlety clearly wasn't her thing. She had been the president of Chacha Mustafa for 9 consecutive years. No one ever ran against her. I later understood why. She owned a real estate brokerage in town. Her husband, Garrett, a retired state trooper, still carried his badge like he expected to arrest someone at the community pool. He conveniently ran security consulting for Chacha Mustafa. The trouble began when I repainted my exterior trim. Smoky quartz, a soft gray Elaine had personally chosen. The architectural committee approved it in writing. 3 weeks later, Vivian appeared at my front door like a turquoise-draped angel of bureaucratic death. "That color is not approved," she said. I showed her the email, the paint code, the signatures. She glanced at it the way someone looks at a parking ticket from 1987. "The committee was mistaken," she said. "I'm overriding them." I paid the $500 and repainted. At the time, I was still a sitting judge. I had to be careful about public disputes. Vivian, however, was just getting started. Hart recorded the conversation and sent it directly to my chief of staff with a short note. "Thought you should hear this." Vivian's voice was clear on the tape. We need to make it impossible for governors to bully community organizations. These people need to understand we're protecting property values. I saved the file. I didn't leak it. Not yet. She's panicking, Mariana said after listening, and panicked people make mistakes. Then let her panic more. That's when Kurt found the smoking gun. As a homeowner, I had the legal right to request Chacha Mustafa's financial records. It took them 3 weeks to comply. When the documents finally arrived, Kurt spent 2 full days reviewing them with a forensic accountant. He called me at 11 p.m. "You need to see this." His conference table looked like a crime scene. Spreadsheets spread everywhere, coffee cups abandoned, overhead lights buzzing softly. The room smelled like old paper and highlighter ink. Chacha Mustafa has $340,000 in reserves, Kurt said. Last year they spent $180,000. Look here. He pointed to 3 entries. $60,000 paid to Garrett's Security Consulting LLC, no contract, no work product. $45,000 paid to Vivian's daughter's landscaping company for work that looked like a middle school summer project. $75,000 spent fighting homeowners in court, people who settled just to escape. "That's embezzlement," I said. "Correct," Kurt replied. "Chacha Mustafa is a nonprofit. Officers can't self-deal. Every dollar that went to her family is a felony." Then he slid another page across the table. And here's the real problem. There's a $127,000 lien against Chacha Mustafa from a paving company. Work was done 18 months ago, never paid. Where did the money go? Kurt showed me bank statements, transfers to a Nevada LLC owned by Vivian and Garrett. She collected dues for the paving project, pocketed the money, and now the contractor is about to foreclose on Chacha Mustafa's property. I stared at the numbers, years of theft hiding in plain sight because no one ever audited the books. "She didn't demolish my house over fines," I said slowly. "She did it because I was about to run for governor, and she needed me gone before anyone looked at these records." Kurt nodded. "You're a lawyer, a judge. This was always going to come out." "So she tried to destroy me first," I said, "and handed us a federal case." 2 weeks before Vivian's deposition, someone broke into my construction trailer. I'd been storing what survived of Aline's salvaged materials there. Blueprints, timbers, the tool chest she used during construction. The call came at 6 a.m. "Mr. Kendrick, your trailer's been vandalized." I drove up through the morning fog, clinging to the pines like wet wool. The padlock had been cut clean through. The door creaked in the wind. Inside was worse. Aline's design journal, gone. Every sketch, every note explaining why she chose each angle. Her father's tool chest from architecture school, gone. 3 irreplaceable timbers marked with her handwriting, missing. Spray painted across the wall in dripping red letters, "Go back to the Capitol." The paint smelled sharp and fresh. This had happened less than an hour earlier. I sat down on the metal step outside. For the first time since the demolition, I broke, head in my hands. Lucia found me 20 minutes later. She didn't say anything, just sat beside me in silence. After a while, she spoke softly. "Miss Elaine would want you to finish this." The sheriff's department treated it as low-priority vandalism, so I made another call. Rex Dunaway, former FBI white-collar specialist. "Give me 48 hours, he said. Rex pulled gas station security footage 2 miles down the mountain. Garrett's truck, timestamp 2:14 a.m., driving away from my property. Credit card records showed Garrett buying bolt cutters and red spray paint 3 days earlier. "Angry people get sloppy," said Rex. But then he found something bigger. Vivian had tried to buy my land 3 years in a row before the mansion was even finished. "She offered you $1.2 million, then $2 million. Land was appraised at $2.1. You ignored her." "I wasn't selling Elaine's dream," I said. "She had a luxury developer lined up, Aspen-based, willing to pay $3.6 million, 600% markup." One email stood out. Vivian to her business partner, sent 18 months ago. "Kendrick won't sell. We need to create motivation." "She planned this before your governor run?" Rex said. Manufactured violations. When that didn't work, she used the election window. Demolish while you're distracted. The deposition took place at a Denver law firm. Mariana started calmly, surgically. Mrs. Pritchard, you've stated you followed all procedures. Let's review the demolition vote. How many board members voted? Unanimously. The board has 5 members. Minutes show 3 present. 2 members submitted affidavits stating they were never notified. How is 3 out of 5 unanimous? Vivian shifted. They were notified. They forgot. So 2 board members are lying under oath? Her attorney jumped in. Don't answer. Mariana slid an email across the table. You wrote, Kendrick is running for governor. We need him out. Find a reason. Can you explain that? Color drained from Vivian's face. That was out of context. What context makes find a reason acceptable? Silence. In another email, you wrote, Kendrick would bring media and protesters if elected, and that you needed him gone, correct? He was ruining the community, Vivian snapped. People like him move in and change everything. You wouldn't understand. You people never do. The room froze. Mariana, calm and Latina, slowly set down her pen. Excuse me, you people? Long silence. Vivian's attorney stood. We're taking a break. While Vivian unraveled, I met with Hector Ruiz, a structural engineer and old law school friend. He'd been reviewing the demolition. We've got a problem, Hector said, his office smelling of coffee and blueprint toner. The contractor ignored EPA protocols. He showed me lab results, asbestos confirmed in 12 salvaged barn timbers. No EPA notice, no air monitoring, no containment. They just tore it apart. How bad? Neighbors within 200 yards were exposed. 2 families have young children. The contractor, it turned out, was Vivian's brother-in-law. She signed the work order. This isn't negligence, Hector said. This is criminal. EPA fines can reach $25,000 per day, plus health liability. Can we file? Already drafted. As the evidence stacked up, the community rallied. Dale organized a fundraiser at the local church, Rebuild Elaine's Dream. 140 people showed up, from Ridgemont Estates and beyond. They raised $68,000 in one night. I stood there, surrounded by strangers who felt like allies, and for the first time since Elaine died, I didn't feel alone. This will fund a scholarship, I said, in Elaine's name, for architecture students. Vivian wasn't done. She tried to foreclose on Iris, the elderly widow, for $12,000 in fake fines. Mariana stopped it within 24 hours. Local news ran the story. Chacha Mustafa president targets 79-year-old widow. That night, Rex texted me. Garrett hired a criminal attorney. Good, I said. Let him sweat. Back at Kurt's office, we laid everything out. Embezzlement, theft, civil rights violations, illegal demolition, environmental crimes, witness intimidation. This isn't an HOA dispute anymore, Mariana said quietly. This is organized fraud. How long until the FBI? I asked. We could go tomorrow, but first, let the entire community see who Vivian Pritchard really is. Kurt nodded. The quarterly town hall meeting is in 3 weeks, Kurt said. Vivian has to preside. It's in the bylaws. And even though your house was demolished, you still own the land. That gives you full homeowner rights. You attend, Mariana added. You bring witnesses. We present everything. Everything, I said. Every document, every recording, every witness. Live. And we invite the press, Mariana said. Make it impossible for her to spin this. I thought about Elaine, about what she would have wanted. Not revenge, justice, the kind that actually helps people. Set it up, I said. Let's finish this the right way. Kurt rented a storage unit and turned it into a war room. Bankers' boxes stacked to the ceiling, binders labeled and color-coded, timelines taped to the walls like a prosecutor's playbook. Trial lawyers call this the story spine, Kurt said, tapping a flowchart. Every jury needs a clean narrative. Villain commits wrong, truth is uncovered, justice follows. We're at step 2. We rehearsed scenarios. What if Vivian walks out? She can't. As president of Chacha Mustafa, she's required to preside. What if her attorney intervenes? He can object. This isn't court, it's a homeowner meeting. What if homeowners side with her? Then they hear the evidence anyway. Mariana handled witness prep. She met with the 18 plaintiffs in small groups. Facts, not feelings, she coached. She fined me $8,000 for a shed the committee approved is stronger than she's terrible. Iris practiced until her voice stopped shaking. She threatened foreclosure over rose bushes 3 inches too tall. I'm 79. I measured with a ruler. Rick Delgado rehearsed his line. I paved your roads, invoiced $127,000, never got paid. I have a lien. If unpaid, I can foreclose on this clubhouse. Kurt explained records law. Any homeowner and request Chacha Mustafa financials. They must comply within 10 days or face penalties. Crooked boards bet no one asks. I had asked. Vivian fought it. A judge ordered compliance in 48 hours. When a board fights records requests, Kurt said, that's your red flag. Honest boards don't hide. Hector compiled his engineering report, 40 pages. Asbestos confirmed in 12 timbers. No EPA notice, no air monitoring. Families with children exposed within 200 yards. This goes beyond lawsuits. This is EPA Criminal Investigation Division territory. He walked me through filing. Anyone could submit an EPA complaint online. No lawyer needed. Photos, lab results, timeline. EPA investigates 70% of credible asbestos reports within 90 days. I filed that afternoon. Dale volunteered to live stream the town hall. 3 cameras, one on Vivian, one on the audience, one on the Q&A mic. Unlisted YouTube link shared with homeowners and press. Public meetings are public. Recording prevents lies and violence. Backup audio recorders were hidden in case Vivian killed the stream. My communications director briefed 3 journalists separately. State newspaper, embezzlement, shell companies, stolen road funds. Denver TV, discrimination against Lucia, intimidation of Iris. National podcast, illegal demolition, EPA violations. By town hall night, they'll have done their own digging. The night before, I couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m., I walked the property, stood where the atrium once was, found a shard of Elaine's skylight glass. I pocketed it. Text from Mariana. Vivian emailed all homeowners. Meeting is homeowners only. No guests, no media. I called Kurt. She can't do that, he said immediately. Bylaw Section 7.3. Homeowners may bring advisors and witnesses. Exclusion is illegal. He drafted a response and CC'd every homeowner. Per bylaws, homeowners may bring advisors and witnesses. Exclusion is illegal. See you at 7. I requested a sheriff's deputy, not as governor, but as a concerned citizen requesting law enforcement presence at a contentious public meeting. Deputy Ramona Voss was assigned, 15 years on the force, no connection to Garrett, neutral reputation. You're witnessing, not arresting. If laws are broken, you report. Understood. Morning of the meeting, Vivian emailed again, high interest tonight, standing room only. She was trying to pack the room with supporters. Too late. I had confirmed 26 plaintiffs, Rick, Hector, Mariana, Kurt, Iris. 3 journalists already staked out the parking lot. Dale texted at noon, cameras set, tested, ready. At 5 p.m., I parked outside the Ridgemont Estates clubhouse and watched homeowners arrive early claiming seats. My phone buzzed. Kurt, her attorney filed to postpone. Judge denied it 10 minutes ago. Mariana, all witnesses confirmed. Chief of Staff, press gathering. This is big. The sun dropped behind the mountains, the sky turning fire orange. I thought of Elaine, of justice that actually helps people. 6:45. I walked toward the clubhouse. Inside, 120 folding chairs filled the room, fire code capacity. Vivian's podium stood at the front, flanked by 2 board members. The other 2, never notified of the demolition vote, were conspicuously absent. Dale's cameras were already rolling. Live stream showed 340 viewers, every homeowner, plus press. I sat in the back row with Mariana and Kurt. Lucia sat beside me, deliberate. 7 p.m. Vivian called the meeting to order, reading from a script. Welcome, neighbors. Tonight we celebrate another successful year. Reserves are strong, property values up 12%. PowerPoint slides rolled, new clubhouse furniture, repaved tennis courts, holiday decorations. Slide 8, expenditures. Legal defense, $75,000. Murmurs rippled through the room. Anonymous homeowner, middle row. Defense against what? Vivian smiled tightly. Frivolous lawsuits from a disgruntled former resident. You mean the governor whose house you demolished? Vivian stiffened. That matter is in litigation. Kurt stood. Actually, you brought it up. Fair game. Vivian's attorney whispered, move on. But Vivian couldn't stop. The governor thinks he's above the rules, she snapped. He refused to follow basic community standards. We had no choice. I didn't stand, I didn't speak. I just held her gaze. The room noticed. Phones started recording. Board member Phyllis stood suddenly. Vivian, I need to say something. This isn't the time. I was never told about the demolition vote. I was in Arizona. You said it was an emergency. It was. Then why does the governor's attorney have emails showing you planned it 3 weeks in advance? The room exploded. Vivian banged the gavel. Order! Chaos erupted. Homeowners shouting. Phyllis held up the email like evidence in a trial. Vivian's attorney stood. This meeting is adjourned. Kurt cut through the noise. You can't adjourn during a homeowner challenge. State law requires you to address questions. Deputy Voss stepped forward. Ma'am, I recommend continuing. Vivian sat down hard, voice shaking. Fine. Questions, one at a time. I stood and walked to the Q&A mic. Dale's camera followed. Mrs. Pritchard, you've stated my property was demolished for failure to pay legitimate fines, correct? Yes. And how much did I allegedly owe? She checked her notes. $38,600. And I refused to pay? Correct. I turned to Kurt. He handed me a binder. I'd like to enter into the record copies of 19 cashier's checks totaling $34,200. Each check corresponded to a fine. Each was cashed by Chacha Mustafa within 10 business days. Please pass that to Phyllis. Phyllis flipped through it, color draining from her face. And the remaining $4,400? I asked. What were those fines for? Vivian whispered to her attorney. I'll answer, I said. Refusing to repaint after you changed your mind, refusing to remove wildflowers preventing erosion, refusing to ban my housekeeper from my driveway, and refusing to remove a bird feeder you called visual clutter. Kurt distributed packets, committee approval emails followed by Vivian's override notices. A homeowner read aloud. This says committee approval is void because the president disagrees. Can she do that? No, I said. Bylaws say committee decisions are final unless overridden by a full board vote. That never happened. Vivian snapped. You were a problem from day one. My staff? You mean Lucia? I didn't say that. You wrote it. Mariana projected an email. Kendrick's domestic staff is a security risk. We need documentation of her legal status. Lucia stood. I am a U.S. citizen born in El Paso, Texas. You asked for my papers 4 times. You never asked anyone else. Vivian stammered. Protecting the community from what? A woman who cleans houses? Silence. Let's talk money, I said. Where did the $127,000 for road resurfacing go? Rick Delgado stood. I paved your roads 2 years ago, invoiced $127,000, never got paid. I have a lien. If unpaid, I can foreclose on this clubhouse. Gasps filled the room. Kurt added, the money was collected, then transferred to a Nevada LLC, Ridgemont Management Services, owned by Vivian and Garrett Pritchard. That's embezzlement. Vivian's attorney went pale. This meeting is over. Deputy Voss stepped in. Sir, sit down. One more question, I said. When did you decide to demolish my house? After you refused to comply. After I was elected governor? That's irrelevant. Mariana projected another email. Kendrick is running for governor. If he wins, we need him out. Find a reason. Explain. Vivian stood there shaking. You're taking that out of context, she snapped. What context? I replied. You planned this a year in advance. You targeted me because of my political career. You demolished my home, my late wife's legacy, while I was serving this state. 4 hours notice, violating state law, federal EPA regulations, and basic human decency. Vivian was screaming now. You don't belong here. You never did. You and your people think you can just move in. Garrett grabbed her arm. Vivian stopped talking, then couldn't stop herself. This was our community, she shouted. We built it. We kept it safe. And then people like you... Phyllis stood up. Vivian, sit down. You're done. Vivian collapsed into her chair, sobbing. Deputy Voss spoke calmly into her radio. Dispatch, I need a detective at Ridgemont Estates Clubhouse. Possible financial crimes. The live stream viewer count jumped to 1,200. I looked around the room. 300 faces. Some angry, some shocked, some visibly relieved. I'm not here for revenge, I said quietly. I'm here because no one should go through what I did. No one should be targeted like Lucia was. This ends tonight. The room stayed silent for 5 seconds. Then chaos. 3 news crews burst through the doors. Cameras, lights, microphones everywhere. Channel 7's anchor shoved a mic toward Vivian. Mrs. Pritchard, did you embezzle Chacha Mustafa funds? Her attorney stepped in front of her. No comment. The podcast host cornered Virat. Sir, did you vandalize the governor's trailer? Garrett pushed past without answering. But the real explosion came from the homeowners. People who had stayed silent for years were suddenly on their feet. You fined me $6,000 for a fence you approved. My daughter's Honda, you called it a commercial vehicle. Where is our road resurfacing money? Vivian grabbed her purse and tried to leave. Phyllis blocked the door. You're not going anywhere. We're voting now, Leonard said. You can't, Vivian screamed. Emergency vote to remove you as president of Chacha Mustafa, effective immediately. Leonard raised his hand. Seconded. All in favor? Both board members raised their hands. Motion carries. Vivian, you're removed. Vivian's face turned white. This is illegal. You need the full board. The full board wasn't told about demolishing a $4 million home, Phyllis replied. We'll sort legality later. Right now, leave. Gorrit pulled Vivian toward the exit. She was screaming as they went. You'll regret this. I gave 9 years to this place. The door slammed. The Escalade's taillights vanished into the darkness. The room finally exhaled. Deputy Voss stepped forward. Anyone with knowledge of financial irregularities, discrimination, or property damage, please stay. Hands shot up. 20, 30, 40. Rick raised his hand. So did Iris. So did Lucia. Journalists moved fast, collecting quotes, building stories in real time. The podcast host found me again. Governor, what happens now? I said, the system works. Civil suits are filed. The state attorney general is investigating embezzlement. The EPA is reviewing asbestos violations. Law enforcement is taking statements. Will Vivian Pritchard face prison? That's up to prosecutors and juries. Behind me, Mariana organized witnesses into groups. Kurt photographed documents and evidence. Dale checked the livestream. 2,800 viewers and climbing. My phone buzzed. Chief of Staff. National news in 3, 2, 1. Social media exploded. Governor takes down corrupt Chacha Mustafa began trending. Vivian's "You people" comment went viral. 30 minutes later, most of the room had emptied. I was helping Dale pack cameras when Iris approached with her daughter. Governor, her voice trembling, thank you. I've been afraid in my own home for years. Afraid to plant flowers, afraid to turn on lights, afraid to park wrong. She looked up at me. Tonight, I'm not afraid anymore. Her daughter hugged her. Mom had panic attacks every time she saw Vivian's Escalade, Iris said quietly. Nobody should live like that, I replied. What you did tonight, telling the truth, gave others courage. I'm filing complaints too, she said, for all the years she tormented me. Mariana will help, I told her. 40 people are ready to stand with you. After she left, I sat alone in a folding chair. The clubhouse was nearly empty now, just Kurt, Mariana, and Dale packing up equipment. The smell of old coffee and stress still hung in the air. The evidence board remained on the wall. Timelines, financial records, emails. Vivian's corruption mapped like a crime scene. "We did it," Mariana said softly. "Not yet," I answered. "Tonight was exposure. Justice comes next." Kurt's phone rang. He listened, then looked up. "Attorney General just called. Formal criminal investigation is opening. FBI's involved. Interstate shell companies. This goes federal." Dale showed me his phone. "Live streams archived. 8,300 views already. People are calling it the most satisfying Chacha Mustafa takedown ever." I scrolled through comments. This is accountability. Finally, someone stood up. That "you people" moment, she buried herself. "My Chacha Mustafa does this. Where do I start?" That last one stopped me. "Kurt," I said, "can we make a resource guide? How to request records, file complaints, organize against corrupt boards?" Kurt said, "Already started. Free. Public." Outside, the mountain night was cold and clear. Stars everywhere. I stood in the parking lot where homeowners had arrived hours earlier, anxious, uncertain. They'd left different, empowered. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Carvala, this is Carla Mendez. We met at the festival. Remember our water supply issue? Can we talk? 32 kids are sick. State says it's safe. It's not." I stared at the message. Another fight. Another corrupt system. Another person who thought they were untouchable. I typed back. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., my office. Bring everything." Mariana glanced over my shoulder. "You're not done, are you?" "Just getting started." Kurt locked the clubhouse behind us. For what it's worth, Elaine would be proud. I looked back at the building, the scene of Vivian's downfall. Tomorrow it would just be a clubhouse again, but tonight it had been a courtroom where truth won. "Yeah," I said, "she would be." We drove down the mountain in convoy. Kurt's pickup, Mariana's sedan, my truck. Headlights cutting through pine darkness. Behind us, Ridgemont Estates slept, peaceful for the first time in 9 years. Ahead of us, more work. Criminal trials, federal investigations, 32 kids who needed clean water. But tonight, we'd won. And tomorrow, we'd win again. The arrests came 6 days later. I was in my office reviewing the water contamination files Carla had brought when my chief of staff knocked. "Tobias, turn on Channel 7. I pulled up the live stream. There was Vivian's house. 2 FBI vehicles in the driveway. Agents in windbreakers carrying boxes. The anchor's voice cut in. "Breaking news from Ridgemont Estates. FBI agents are executing search warrants at the home of former Chacha Mustafa president Vivian Pritchard. Sources say this relates to allegations of embezzlement and wire fraud involving Chacha Mustafa funds." My phone lit up. "Kurt, it's happening." "Mariana, FBI just called. They want our evidence files." "Rex Garrett, in custody, federal courthouse, picked up at 6 a.m. I watched the screen. Vivian was led out in handcuffs. No turquoise jewelry, no sunglasses. Just a woman who had finally run out of places to hide. Formal charges came 3 days later. Federal wire fraud, embezzlement, civil rights violations, witness intimidation. The EPA added criminal environmental charges for asbestos exposure. Vivian's bail, $500,000. Garrett's bail, $250,000. They couldn't make it. Both spent 2 weeks in federal custody before Vivian's daughter mortgaged her house to post bond. But the real victory came in civil court. Kurt and Mariana filed a consolidated lawsuit, my wrongful demolition case, the class action from 26 homeowners, and Rick Delgado's lien. The Chacha Mustafa insurance carrier reviewed the evidence once and settled within 30 days. My share was $400,000, enough to rebuild, with money left over to fully fund Elaine's scholarship. The 26 homeowners averaged $67,000 each, years of illegal fines refunded with interest. Rick received $145,000 plus legal fees. He paid off his equipment loans, gave his crew bonuses, and cried when the check cleared. Iris used her settlement to pay off her mortgage and donated $15,000 to the local food bank. But the biggest change wasn't the money. It was Ridgemont Estates itself. Phyllis called an emergency election. New board members were voted in by a landslide. First order of business? New bylaws. Transparent financials posted online every month. No fines over $500 without a hearing. Mandatory third-party audits annually. A two-thirds vote required for any demolition or foreclosure. The Attorney General's office asked me to testify before the state legislature. They wanted Chacha Mustafa reform statewide. I sat in the Capitol building where I'd been sworn in as governor 4 months earlier. This time, I wasn't there as governor. I was there as a homeowner who'd been wronged. The current system allows Chacha Mustafa boards to operate with almost no oversight, I told the committee. They can find, foreclose, and demolish with minimal due process. My case got attention because I'm governor, but there are thousands of homeowners across this state dealing with the same abuse. They don't have lawyers on speed dial. They don't have media connections. They just suffer in silence. I presented Kurt's resource guide, clear instructions for requesting records, filing complaints, and organizing against corrupt boards. Make this available on the state website, I said. Free, accessible. Let homeowners know they have rights. The bill passed 38-12 in the Senate and 67-8 in the House. The Homeowner Protection Act required 60 days written notice before any lien or foreclosure, mandatory mediation before legal action, capped Chacha Mustafa fines at $1,000 per violation, and made self-dealing by board officers a felony, up to 5 years in prison. I signed it into law at a ceremony held at the Ridgemont Estates clubhouse. Iris stood beside me. So did Rick. So did Lucia. When I finished signing, I handed the pen to Iris. This is for everyone who was afraid to speak up. She held it like it mattered. My granddaughter's going to college to study law because of what she saw happen here, because she saw that fighting back works. Within 6 months, 12 other states adopted similar legislation. Vivian's criminal trial was scheduled for the following spring. Her attorney tried every delay tactic. All failed. In the meantime, I focused on rebuilding, not the mansion, something different. I hired a local architect, a young woman who reminded me of Elaine. I showed her the salvaged timbers, the sketches, the design journal that had survived the vandalism. I want something smaller, I said, 2,400 square feet, sustainable, using as much of her original materials as possible. What's the purpose? She asked. It's not a monument anymore, I said. It's just home. We built it over 9 months. Local contractors, Rick's company poured the driveway. Hector consulted on every detail. Dale helped with the electrical. The opening became a community event. 200 people came. Music, food trucks, kids running across land that had once been just mine, but now felt like it belonged to everyone who had fought beside me. I stood on the deck watching the sun set over the Continental Divide, the same view Elaine had sketched from her hospital bed. Different house, same dream. Lucia brought me coffee. She worked for me full-time now, executive residence manager, a state position with full benefits. Miss Elaine would like this, she said. Yeah, I replied. She would. My phone buzzed. Text from Mariana. Vivian pleaded guilty. Federal prosecutor just called. 8 years, no parole. I showed Lucia the message. Is it over? She asked. For Vivian, for us, we're just getting started. Vivian Pritchard pleaded guilty to federal wire fraud, embezzlement, and civil rights violations 6 months after the town hall. She took a deal, 8 years in federal prison. Garrett received 18 months for witness intimidation and destruction of property. The sentencing hearing was quiet. No media circus, just a federal courtroom, a tired judge, and 2 people who had finally learned they weren't untouchable. I didn't attend. Justice doesn't need an audience. The real victory came after. Ridgemont Estates transformed. New board, new culture. Phyllis served as president for 2 years, then stepped aside for someone younger. Board meetings shifted from confrontations to actual community building. 0 foreclosures since 2024. 0 demolitions. 0 discriminatory enforcement. The scholarship fund grew, $68,000 from a church fundraiser, plus my settlement money, plus donations from strangers who'd watched the live stream. The first year, we funded 8 students, architecture majors, first-generation college kids, exactly who Elaine would have chosen. One recipient was a young woman from El Paso who wanted to design affordable housing. She sent a thank you note with a sketch attached. A small home with big windows built to catch the light. "Your wife would have loved this," she wrote. I framed it. The conservancy easement became official. 2 of my 3 acres permanently protected, never subdivided, never overdeveloped. I opened a public hiking trail through the property, just like Elaine had wanted. On weekends, I'd see families walking it, kids pointing at birds, couples holding hands. That was her dream, not a monument, a place that gave something back. The annual Mountain Community Day became tradition. Every September, local artisans, food trucks, live music, kids' activities. First year, 900 people. Second year, 1,500. Proceeds funded the Chacha Mustafa legal defense nonprofit Kurt and Mariana launched, helping homeowners across the state fight corrupt boards. At the second festival, I ran into Carla Mendez. She brought her son, one of the 32 kids who'd gotten sick from contaminated water. We'd spent a year fighting the fracking company, the regulators who looked away, the lawyers who thought small-town families couldn't win. We won. The settlement included water filtration for the entire town, medical monitoring for affected children, and criminal charges pending on 3 executives. "Governor," Carla said, her son playing on the grass, "you gave us hope." "You did the fighting," I said. "I just knew which doors to knock on." As the sun dropped behind the mountains, I walked back to my house, the smaller one, the sustainable one, built from Elaine's salvaged timber and new dreams. Lucia was watering the native wildflowers we'd planted, the same ones Vivian once fined me for. Now they covered the slope in purple and gold every summer. "Good day?" she asked. "Good year," I said. Inside, the walls held photos, Elaine and me on our wedding day, the original mansion mid-construction, the rubble, the rebuild, Iris at the bill signing, Rick cutting the ribbon on his expanded business, scholarship recipients at graduation. A story told in images, destruction and rebuilding, loss and justice. My phone buzzed. Email from the National Governors Association. They wanted me to speak at their conference about Chacha Mustafa reform. 12 states had already adopted versions of the Homeowner Protection Act. 15 more were considering it. What started as personal tragedy had become a movement. I thought about replying, then I checked the time. 8 p.m., late. Tomorrow. There was always tomorrow for more work. Tonight, I poured a glass of whiskey, sat on the deck, and listened to the wind move through steel and glass, the mountains breathing, just like Elaine designed. Somewhere in federal prison, Vivian was learning that power without accountability doesn't last. Somewhere in Ridgemont Estates, families were living without fear. Somewhere across the country, homeowners were requesting records, filing complaints, and standing up to tyrants with gavels. And here, on this mountain, in this house, built from grief, justice, and stubborn hope, I was home. Not the home Elaine sketched. Better, because it wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to everyone who thought beside me, everyone who learned that systems only work when people demand they do. If you've ever dealt with a Chacha Mustafa nightmare or any petty tyrant who thought they were untouchable, share your story. Let's keep shining light. The fight for justice never really ends, but damn, sometimes it feels good to win.